Hey, this is Dan McGaw, CEO of McGaw.io, and looking forward to catching you this week on the Jesse T Show.
The mighty, the powerful, Dan McGaw. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me here. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the connection, man. We had a great first introduction, and there was a lot of synergy and some cool things that you're really into and you're working on and things that I want to hear more about. So if you could just give us a little bit of context on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I'm Dan McGaw. I'm the CEO, founder of McGaw.io. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I love to build and start companies. So that's really what I focus most of my time on. But I've been in the marketing technology and marketing analytics space for over 20 years. So that's really where I kind of live and die, right? Is in the technology and marketing space.
Beautiful, brother. And how did you get to that point? What was the journey like getting to where you are now?
Yeah, great question. I've always been in technology since I was about 5 years old. I've been playing hardcore on computers. So I remember back in the days playing on MS-DOS just so I could actually get access to the games. So I've always been super into tech. But I started my first company as an entrepreneur when I was 13. So like I just am a natural born entrepreneur. I like to solve problems. I like to build things. So I started a few different companies, started out in the music business, then kind of bounced around in the hospitality and nightlife industry for a little while. Most recently, before starting this company, I've been the CEO of McGaw.io for the past 7 years. But before starting this, I was also the head of marketing at a famous analytics company called Kissmetrics. So help steer that rocket ship. I actually was Neil Patel's replacement at the company. So it was a super, super fabulous role. So I've kind of been around the world in regards to different types of entrepreneurship, also running some of the big companies. So just had a lot of fun to get here.
What was it that you were doing? Did you say in the music space?
Yeah, my first company was actually in the music business.
What were you doing there?
Yeah, really interesting question. So, back in 1998, right? Like when I was 13, I probably should not have gone to a rave, right? But I did go to a rave, fell in love with electronic dance music, got really big into house music and trance and stuff like that. And I was like, man, this is just awesome. I want to do this. So I fell in love with it. But when I left that rave the next day, I was like, I want to do this for a living. But I thought the best way to do that was a record label. I had no idea at the time, right? I was 13 and stupid, that a record label is basically a bank. They loan an artist money and then they try to recoup that money over time, basically with interest on top of it. And then they maximize that stuff. And they provide some services like marketing and artist and repertoire and all that stuff. At 13, I didn't have any money, right? So I couldn't be the bank. So I didn't know it was called a pivot back then, but I was like, well, I can't do the record label thing. So what can I do? So I got introduced to the concept of artist management and then as well as being a booking agent. And, that's a services-based business where you don't need any upfront capital. You just got to be able to find an artist who will allow you to manage them or get them bookings. And then you take 15% or whatever they make. So I was like, well, I'm going to do that. So I started a company called Shattered Records Management. And I started collecting artists that I would be able to help manage and then as well as get bookings. So that was my first foray into the music industry, was running a booking agency. But the difference between us and booking agencies at the time is back in 98, like the way you got somebody bookings was to call a promoter or know a promoter and get them booked. I was 13 and stupid. I didn't know anybody. So I just started promoting these artists on bulletin boards and forums to fans, right? So here's my artist record, or here's their mix set. Put it on line, got it on Napster, got it on my GOC's website, put it on a whole bunch of bulletin boards. And then that started building ultimately interest in my artists to ultimately getting them bookings at clubs. So it was one of the first online booking agencies, right, where our whole model was online. Was fairly successful with that at first, and then started doing sub bookings for other agencies. So I had the opportunity, very fortunately, to work with artists like Kyoki, who was the first EDM artist to sell 1 million albums in the United States. Darude, who made the world famous Sandstorm song. These are all people that I did bookings for with this company back in 98 to 2003, about that time. And that's really how I got my start, was just down and dirty, figure it the fuck out and get going.
Who was your favorite artist in terms of like personality or vibe? And then also, like, did you work with someone, one of their songs was your favorite song?
I'd have to say that Darude was probably the artist that I was most interested in working with. There's another artist that I actually managed that I had more of a relationship with called Fat Rabbit out of North Carolina. But at the end of the day, when I was doing the booking agency, as it really started to grow, I didn't actually have much interaction with the artist at all. My job was basically to find a promoter, have an artist, get those two things going, connect it with their manager, connect it with their booking agent. So I didn't have much interaction with most of the artists. I also didn't listen to most of the artists. By the end of it, we had over 160 different DJs or producers that we managed. So I didn't know who most of these people really were. I just knew that this is what they played. This is how they played. This is what their fee was. These are the markets they're trying to get into. But I would just say Darude would probably be the one that I followed the most. There's also a DJ Micro, which I've actually, Darude and DJ Micro, I've actually booked here in Orlando many years later. But it was, it was interesting. But at the end of the day, you get burnt out on the nightlife industry, right? When your
Sure.
job is to go to venues and stay out till 4 o'clock in the morning, it's kind of cool for a little while, like when you're the guy that everybody knows, but you really do get burnt out on that lifestyle. So it was just a little hard to manage. So it was one of the reasons why I got out.
How was it being young, still, teens in that lifestyle? Were you able to partake in any of the partying, or do you have to wait a few years?
No, great question. Yeah, no, I definitely participated because I had a lanyard. I got into wherever I needed to go. So my job was to collect checks in many cases as well. So I won't lie at all. My teenage years were very filled with a lot of fun. My high school, it's funny because my junior year in high school, I had a truancy warrant come out for myself and my mother because I had missed so much school.
Wow.
So in an average school year, you have 160 to 200 days that like you need to be there, and I had missed 90 days
Like half a year. Yeah.
through the school. And my school sent a truancy officer to collect me, and then as well as get my mom in trouble. We had to deal with a bunch of problems there,
Wow.
but they didn't really have a lot to fight with. We actually had to go see a judge and all kinds of stuff about the problem. We're like, I'm running a business, right? So like, I want to come to school, but like, what are the legal laws that I have to follow? And there's specific laws about how you have to go to school. But that was also one of the reasons why I graduated early. I got out of school really early, my senior year, because I just needed to get out of school. Like school wasn't my thing. Business for sure was.
Where did the knack for being an entrepreneur come from? Did you have somebody in your, periphery that was doing this, or was this just innate?
Yeah, there was nobody, I can't remember, the first time I really knew what an entrepreneur was, I was probably in my mid 20s and already had been an entrepreneur for a long time. I grew up really poor in the hood. So naturally, I had to figure out how to make money there. And I grew up in a really rough ghetto in Pittsburgh called East Liberty. And, I didn't really have much. I mean, I grew up on welfare, like we grew up on WIC and food stamps and all that stuff. And I didn't have money. Like I was the poor kid that would come to school wearing the same shirt 3 days in a row because mom did do laundry, whatever, I was poor. But luckily, my grandparents are very successful. My grandfather is an optical engineer, so he worked on the Hubble Space Telescope, helped build the lenses and all that stuff for that. So they did pretty well for themselves. So very fortunately, they cared a lot about myself, and my mom cared a lot, don't get me wrong, but they got me into the richest prep school in Pittsburgh. So I had to go from the second worst ghetto in Pittsburgh to the nicest school in the city, right? And had to like go through this dichotomy. And I really quickly found out like, hey, there's these haves and there's these have-nots. Which one am I going to be a part of? And I just saw that all these kids that I went to school with, their parents ran businesses, their parents had businesses, or they were doing something more than what my family was doing. And that's really where it just started. And I knew like I had to hustle to do something. I had a good work ethic. That was something my mom always got me into, always had me work to do stuff. But I don't know where the entrepreneur thing came from. It was just one of those things. It was inevitable because I had no other way to make money. So that's really where the entrepreneurship, I think, started. But I didn't know what I was doing or starting a business. It just seemed like the only path that I had at 13.